So, I'm not going to go to sleep. I'm just going to go to work afterwards. I'm still waiting for the person to send me that, I don't know, PDF file or message or link to a web page or a video showing how the documentary hypothesis is just so ridiculous. When Julius Wellhausen basically stumbled across the bulk of it. It had been talked about for a while. Ezra was seen as the compiler of the Torah, or a recompiler of the Torah. That was from very ancient times, and it was always talked about all throughout the history of the Jews and the ancient church, and even up until extremely recently, when people wanted to stop talking about it, people in the church wanted to stop talking about all of them. That's only certain people and minority people, but Moses didn't write the Pentateuch. What most people call the Torah. The Torah, when you say Torah, it can mean all of the. It can mean the Tanakh. It can mean the first 5 books. It can mean the 10 Commandments. It can mean the law portion of it. It can. I've even heard it applied to oral traditions. Damn sepia tone. I'd have to record for my, and that's going to take too long. But I just want to show you something. I'm actually making a separated out. Well, look, you can't even tell that it's highlighted. I'm actually making one of these for a friend. They asked me for one, and we're actually divided up to the different writers. You have the Yahwist, the Elohist, the priestly or P-text. So J-text, Yah, he's German. Yah's J-text, E-text, P-text, redactor, and D-text. And there's might be 2 D-texts. And I got a sneaking suspicion about some parts of these, because some parts they kind of don't know, or there's a bit from here and a bit from there. But overwhelmingly, we see 2 different things. And these would be my questions to the people who are saying, oh no, the documentary hypothesis, that's just, oh, somebody just invented that. When people were asking very early on, you know, if Moses wrote the, if Moses had written the first 5 books, what we call the books of Moses, how does he write about his death and stuff that happened after he dies? So no. Okay, so from in Genesis chapter 1, all of chapter 1, through 2-3. So it's chapter 1 to chapter 2, verse 3. Chapter 1:1 to chapter 2, verse 3. It's God. It's Elohim. And Elohim is creating the universe. He creates things in these time periods, days. Easy to see that it's not not even possibly, couldn't even be meant to mean a 24-hour period of time. They're using day because it's pretty old, and it's written by, this wasn't written by the Greeks. This it was written 500, at least 500 years before Rome was even around. Yeah, I mean, well, the hills, the Palatine Hill might have been around, but nothing that we know as Rome. I don't even know if the Etruscans had conquered that area yet. So it's using this word day, and we know that Hebrew, well, I guess, literalists, do you know how many meanings Hebrew words have? And that letters actually can be words? I should link this to some very interesting videos showing about the Hebrew characters and how they progressed. They actually came from ancient Semitic, which is basically Hebrew. It's the first language, and actually the first phonetic language, and it traveled everywhere. The oldest Torah that we have is actually Semitic. And what had been called Phoenician, they're starting to rethink and actually say that it was these people that we classify as Jews is inventing it. No, that doesn't prove there's a God. I don't want anybody, oh, so you're the Jews, and so that must be. I'm not pulling the magical Quran thing. No. So it uses God. And the sun, I believe, is created on the fourth day. One thing to mention, it's very orthodox about this, but again, yeah, the fourth day. One thing that I should mention about Genesis chapter 1, written by the priestly text, is that it's liturgical. God speaks things into creation, and then there's a response. God speaks, and it's created. And then there's a reply, and it is good. And it gets to man and says, it says, then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Elohim is a plural word. Say, it means gods. No. Not in this context. There's actually a few times where in the Quran it's pluralized. Allah and Elohim are actually cognates. Now it's funny, you have a piece of redactor in chapter 2, verse 4, the first part of it, and the redactor, to try to bridge it, says, this is a history of the heavens and the earth. They were created. But we have a second account that begins. The Lord God made the heavens and the earth, before any plant of the field was in the earth, and before any herb of the field had grown, for the Lord God, and this word Lord that they're using is capital L-O-R-D. Whenever you see capital L-O-R-D or capital G, capital O, capital D, that's less common to see. But when it's in all caps, that's the Tetragrammaton. That's YHVH or YHWH, or what people call Yahweh. And Jehovah's not a word that was invented by the medieval Catholics, so I don't even want to hear that. Oh, you know what? I actually skipped right before it. It says, and it's hypothesized that this is redactor. This actually just could be the beginning of J-Text's story. So this is the history of the heavens and the earth. when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made earth and the heavens. So, the first story is the creation of the heavens and the earth. This is a story of the creation of the earth and the heavens. And how many days does it take? One. And God formed man from dust from the ground, and then he put him in a garden, and there's a tree of good and evil, and it's in a geographical location by the Tigris and Euphrates, and two of the rivers that had dried up, and there's a tree of good and evil, and there's this theodicy in there, and that's how man became, kind of messed up, and it sucks, and because Eve screwed everything up because of a talking snake, and the snake gets cursed too. When reading this, I don't like people say, "Oh, it doesn't say devil; it just says serpent." And you know what? It was, and I thought the person was messing with me at first. I found out they were serious. You know what? It was Justin Martyr. He was the first one to equate the serpent with the devil. And ever since it's been equated as that. Well, if you've got God, humanity, and a serpent or dragon or whatever the hell you want to translate it as, there had been some older dragon or... You have the creator of the world, you have humanity, and then you have this sneaky thing that's tempting mankind. That is Satan, that is the devil. That's what it is. It's a ipso facto devil. It's going to get equated. Well, gee, Justin Martyr do it, so it's not possible any of the Christians that existed before him, or even any of the Jews, would have equated that with any type of demonic force or something bad. That was just the talking snake. It's talking snake. Just like when they wanted. I almost think it's better when they translate wild ox into unicorn and wild goat into satyr, because at least people are, well, the King James onlyists actually think they were unicorns, but the reason why they translated them as unicorn and satyr is because they're mythical animals. I think this one was too. And this stretches from chapter 2, verse 4, and it goes all the way to chapter 5. And in chapter 5, what do we have? We have a third creation story. Now it's the redactor. See, he's just wanting to get genealogies and moving it along and tying it together. That's all he wants to do. So he sums it up, because, Eve gets kicked out, Cain kills Abel, then they have Seth. Does the redactor care about details? No. Listen how he explains it. This is the book of the genealogy of Adam. In the day that God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female, and he blessed them, and he called them mankind. And in that day they were created. Did Adam go to sleep and another day Eve was there after Adam had to name everything on the earth? But people say this just flows together as if it was one book. Now many books hatch together. Adam lived 100 years and 130 years, and he begot a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. And Seth begot and goes on. Now, when I say these were different books and they were different religions, see, it doesn't even care. It's the genealogy doesn't mention Cain or Abel. It doesn't. When you're doing a genealogy, you don't talk about people who are either cursed or who got their head bashed in with a stone. So I'm waiting for a call that I'm not getting. When I say they're different religions, that there was Northern Israel had a different religion, Southern Judah, the actual folk people, had a different religion than the priestly caste of Judah, and that the writer of D had a different view on things. It would be like Lutheran, Methodist, Episcopalian, something like that. It's kind of like different viewpoints on it, or coming from a different perspective, because the writer of J-text, most writers assume that she's a woman. E-text, they say it's a priest from the north, and there are many hints. I mean, that can be shown out. J-text was written first, and I think J-text actually caused the Torah to be written. Because if J-text being written first, and that pisses off so many people. First of all, it gets the northern Israelites irritated, because there's a priest in the north that says, wait a minute, you have God, you're calling God of the universe Yahweh before you even, I mean, this is way before Moses. Nobody would have known God by that name up until Moses. And actually both of the priests, the E-text and P-text, won't use the Tetragrammaton until they get to the burning bush, when the name is revealed. But you have J-text, Yahweh, 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 and Yahweh, and Yahweh, Yahweh. It's maddening. Because this person was raised worshiping Yahweh, so I'm going to write this book how it was done. And we see in the first creation story, God is very cosmic. He's mysterious. He's bodiless. He's the power behind everything, putting things together. There's no fall of mankind. This is just how He created things. In J-text, you have God totally God is a man. When you read in chapter 1, God made man after his own image, and he made man male and female. Actually, everyone that I know that read that part said it's got to be talking about the intellect, or the soul, or something immaterial of an intelligence, because he says, and it's very good. It's not like procreation or anything. Whereas in J-text you have God crafting, of like a guy walking around crafting a guy out of dust, and then he needs to borrow a rib to make Eve, and he's walking through. He says, there's a tree of good and evil, and a tree of life, knowledge of good and evil. You have knowledge or everlasting life. So it's knowledge of good and evil. So that's where they learn evil from, and people try to do stuff like that. So we need a reason why man is all screwed up. Well, the first creation story doesn't give us that. The second one says, well, it was this talking snake. Of course. And then, of course, the interjection here comes the Gnostics. Well, the snake was right, because, it said, the day that you eat of this, you shall surely die. Because we know that when you translate something that's thousands of years old from a language that's thousands of years old, from a text that was thousands of years old, into modern day English, you're really getting the full impact of what was meant and the nuance of the language. Right? No. So that's stupid. Oh no, the serpent was really the true God. He was the real God, and the other God was the demiurge. This is idiot Gnosticism. This is coming from the same person that said, oh, it was just Martyr that said the serpent was the devil, but he was really the good God. Even though he brings the serpent winds up bringing mortality upon mankind. But still, the God of J is walking in the cool of the garden, in the cool of the day. Where are you? And Adam and Eve discover that they're naked, so he casts them out. And you know what he does? He says, well, we got to get rid of this tree, or else they're going to have everlasting life. If you got a P-text, just be like, I don't have fingers to snap, but I can just think it, and boom, they're gone, they're dead. As you go on, it's a funny thing is the flood. The flood is probably another thing that's just smacks you upside the head. So you have one flood story where you have Noah and his sons, and the world's getting very wicked. You know, it's J-text, and the Lord was sorry that he made man, and he grieved in his heart. Very anthropomorphic. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping things, and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Guess what gets spliced in right here? P-text, you got it. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Do you see how it's boom, it just cuts off. When you actually splice this stuff together, it reads a lot smoother. Here it's very choppy. Well, what's this? This kind of begins how the creation story began. Noah walked with God. Noah begat 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. You get that when it says Noah walked with God, I mean, even when it uses things like that, Noah walked with God. God's not grieving, he doesn't have legs, he's not sorrowful, his heart isn't grieved, he's not moved to tears, he's not searching for things. So the earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, the end of flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence, and through them, behold, I will destroy them with the earth. I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make it with rooms of the ark covered in pitch, and it actually gives out measurements. Where's another place where it gives it? Leviticus, which is entirely written by T-text, entirely written by the priesthood. It gives out measurements and everything, says this is how you do it. So Noah did all that God commanded him to do. Pick up with J-text again. Then the Lord said to Noah, come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Take 7 of every clean animal, a male and a female, 2 of each of that are unclean, of male and female. Again, J-text is assuming that Mosaic law already exists. Can you see why this would irritate somebody who's actually like a priest, a learned person? Hey, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. That's like if I'm writing a story about, Abraham, and he says, Jesus, help me. And then they sat down and they baptized their kids, and they performed the Eucharist, and they made the sign of the cross. I mean, they must have been pulling their hair out when they were reading this stuff. Oh my God. So P-text is written to get the story straight. It's actually written to counter J-text. It's an opponent. It's saying, no, I have the better. Read my account. That was written by some weird hick. Didn't even know what they were talking about. How do they know what clean and unclean animals are? They weren't. Moses is like even according to this, is hundreds of years, is at least 400 years off into the future. And P-text, again, is very dramatic. What happens? Where does it say it? It's a great line. P-text, you can tell, is written by, it's very precise. In the 600th year of Noah's life, the 2nd month of the 17th day of the month. The old ages, this is before they went to Egypt. You're using lunar. So you have to divide it by either 4, 5, or sometimes 6. Which is the way they use the lunar calendar. It's not the same lunar calendar that we use, which is basically 4 in 1 year. But and actually some have speculated a star calendar. So it's giving you a precise date, basically. On that day, all the fountains of the deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. That's pretty dramatic. Now look at right next to it. Look at what J-text writes. And the rain was on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, coming from this background, I know what 40 days and 40 nights means. I know what 40 this means, 40 that means. 40 days and 40 nights means a lot of... Been there 40 days and 40 nights. Oh. Yeah, a week and a half is a long time. How long did it take you to get to Virginia while driving? 40 days and 40 nights. How many of them were there? There was like 40 of them. There was actually about 300 of them, but 40 was their term for a lot, for many. I've even heard that's the highest number they had to count, and after that they had to do it in aggregate. So that was their highest number, so they're just a lot. That was their term for a lot, 40. But yet, P-text says the waters prevailed on the earth for 150 days. So it's not pulling slang out of here and there, and 40 days and 40 nights. It just rained a lot. In Jay's story, it just rains a lot. In P-text, flood the fountains of the deep open up and the windows of heaven, and floodgates are unleashed, and And Jay's a better writer. One story has an account of a raven going out, and it doesn't return, so it's safe to leave. Another account has doves coming and going, and like 2 of them. And one comes back with an olive branch and says, "Oh, see, this is, Oh, here's a great thing. So it starts talking about Shem, Ham, and Japheth, right? After the water water dried up. Talks about Japheth, and I'm not going to go through the whole genealogies, and says, from these the coastal peoples, the Gentiles, separated their lands, everyone according to their language and according to their families unto their nations. And talks about Ham, and the sons of Ham, according to their families, according to their languages, their lands, and their nations. Of Shem, and names a bunch of descendants of Shem, and they went to different places according to their families and according to their languages, in their lands according to their nations. And these were the families of Noah. And their nations, and they developed nations and were divided on the earth after the flood. So, you have people spreading out with their own language, their own nations, their own culture. You know what JText has? It has everybody speaking the same language. They're going to build this great city. And people try to interpret it as they were being prideful. And, so in building the Tower of Babel. And you know why God destroys the Tower of Babel? It's crazy. And there's a reoccurring theme through P-Text too. It says, be fruitful and multiply. I mean, I like P up until Leviticus. Then it starts getting pretty freaking dark. Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower, whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. Which, even in the way it is now, P-Text already tells you that they just did that. They're all scattered all over there. But J-Text, no, it's got a coming wacky story. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, in which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, indeed, the people are one, and they have one language. P-Text just said they didn't. They had multiple languages, multiple cultures in totally different lands, totally different nations. And this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord, YHWH, scattered them abroad and all over the face of the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore the name is called Babel, and some people call it Babel. It's the Tower of Babel, because the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from the Lord scattered them abroad and all over the face of the earth. Well, what did P-Text just get done telling you the chapter before? These were the families of the sons of Noah according to their generations, in their nations, and these nations were divided on the earth after the flood. And there was Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Remember before I read, and they went to their own nations with their own language and their own people and their own families. So they're going to all these different parts. It gets... So, I mean, it is clear. It is so clear. It smacks you in the head. It's so clear. Genesis, at least up to chapter 15, has two writers with a redactor trying to sew them together. And he's just putting things together, and then when he cleans stuff up, he just talks about there's generation of this, generation of that, this generation did that, this person begat this. And it's just a family list keeping track of stuff. Hey, check this out. I'm gonna, and he doesn't really care about the women. It's just who begat who, whose sons, whose, and he doesn't mention Eve. It's just Adam, Seth, well, Cain and Abel. And funny thing is that he has this kind of mini creation story in there too, and his genealogy matches the genealogy of Cain, which didn't that get wiped out during the flood? We'll see that same genealogy reappear. And then it starts to get really, if you thought this was foolish, it starts to get really foolish. I read this and I'm like, oh my God. But the thing is I may joke around about it, but I don't see it as a lesser book or something like an atheist being like, oh, haha, this silly thing. It's magnificent. I mean, these are ancient stories. We can learn so much from these people, especially their view of God, and the fact that there's multiple views of God in here. There's at least 3. I mean, withholding the redactor, we have P, J, and E. P is priestly, J is country bumpkin, and E is priestly, but he's from the northern kingdom. So you're getting 3 different views, and then you have D coming around at the end, Deuteronomist, who's going to write the history. He's attacking P and defending J and E. It makes it much richer. And when the redactor was weaving these stories together, okay, you have Abraham almost sacrificing Isaac. I think the burnt offering was actually just the wood. I don't think it was Isaac. That story got added in by the redactor, by the way. Sorry for spoiling it. And then Sarah dies, and then they look for a tomb for Sarah. Well, those are like 4 different stories right there. So those sequence of events didn't happen like that. But when put into it, it's more than the sum total of its parts, because people say, wow, must have shocked and terrified Sarah so much that she only lasted like a few days. She died right afterwards. It's terrible. And then they buried her. But these are all coming from different texts that were written in some cases over 200 years apart from each other. Exodus gets very strange, because in Exodus, P's always talking about Aaron. Moses and Aaron. Moses and Aaron. Moses can't even talk right. Aaron's got to go with him. Aaron can do all the magic stuff. Aaron can mock Moses' black wife, and he never gets leprosy, but Miriam gets leprosy. Moses is stuttering. Moses is in E-text, it's Moses and the elders. It's a lot closer to what it looks like in the history, the judges. Screw Aaron. Aaron's nothing. Aaron's the idiot, the party guy who's always screwing stuff up. And there's a reason why Aaron keeps getting added. And it's the centralization of religion. I'll get into that next video. And find out the real reason why the Nahashtan, the bronze serpent, was destroyed. Was never worshipped. It was a symbol of Moses. And the high places where they used to sacrifice, you read Genesis, they're sacrificing everywhere. Hezekiah sees himself as the second Solomon. He's always compared to Solomon. He's comparing himself to Solomon. Solomon centralized worship in one place. Where before that, they were even wandering around in the desert, and before that, you have, we go sacrifice here, and in any high place, that's where they do their sacrifice, on a horned altar. So the Israelites are going back to their ancestral sacrificial places, like where Isaac or Abraham or Jacob or Joseph or anybody had sacrificed. And Hezekiah says, no, you're coming down here. If you have to worship down here, the money's going to come down here, consolidate my power. And the Aaronites get stinking rich, because the only place you can sacrifice to the one God is in the south. Just happens to be a stone's throw away from a palace where the king lives. So, there's so much depth that you can go into. I think it's extremely beautiful. The Torah shows us so much, more than I think that it's ever done for any generation before us. Now that we have these insights, that we had Wellhausen, Richelieu Friedman, and then Brooke Halperin. So I think this is magnificent. I don't think it lessens anything. I don't think it cheapens anything. I don't think it takes any of the glory or whatever, or the inspiration out of it. I actually think it makes it more beautiful, more engaging, and each time you read it, you get something more out of it. It's got a deeper human aspect to it. It's not just one guy writing. It's these cultures that are writing it, that are vying with it. It's telling a history through a different point in history of how it went down, or at least how one side wanted it to go down. And I think you can see the side that's trying to get the closest to the truth and the side that's trying to be political. And it's very easy to see. With that, I'll let you go. Peace to you. May God save Serbia and Syria. And I when I get to talking, I run long, but I keep getting requests on the documentary hypothesis, and to show it and talk about it. And next time I'll do it in color so you can actually see. And I actually got the request, so this is going to take me a while to actually make this. Once this uploads, I'm out of here. I'm taking off. Gotta stop up in Elgin first, pick up some parts, and then the fun begins. Take it easy, folks. Please pray for all those people who've had somebody close to them die recently. Those who've just had surgery done, those who are going to get surgery done, those who are close to death, those who've passed away, those who are persecuted across the world, and especially those persecuted in the Middle East. May God save Serbia and Syria. Of it, I've even heard it applied to oral traditions. Damn sepia tone. I'd have to record for and that's going to take too long. But I just want to show you something. I'm actually making a separated out. Well, look, you can't even tell that it's highlighted. I'm actually making one of these for a friend. They asked me for one, and we're actually divided up to the different writers. You have the Aoist, the Elohist, the priestly or P-text. So J-text, Yah, he's German. Yah's J-text, E-text, P-text, redactor, and D-text. And there's might be 2 D-texts. And I got a sneaking suspicion about some parts of these, because some parts they kind of don't know, or there's a bit from here and a bit from there. But overwhelmingly, we see 2 different things. And these would be my questions to the people who are saying, oh no, the documentary hypothesis, that's just, oh, somebody just invented that. When people were asking very early on, you know, if Moses wrote if Moses had written the first 5 books, what we call the books of Moses, how does he write about his death and stuff that happened after he dies? So no. Okay, so in Genesis chapter 1, all of chapter 1, through 2-3. So it's chapter 1 to chapter 2, verse 3. Chapter 1:1 to chapter 2, verse 3. It's God. It's Elohim. And Elohim is creating the universe. He creates things in these time periods, days. Easy to see that it's not not even possibly, couldn't even be meant to mean a 24-hour period of time. They're using day because it's pretty old, and it's written by this wasn't written by the Greeks. It was written at least 500 years before Rome was even around. Yeah, the hills, the Palatine Hill might have been around, but nothing that we know as Rome. I don't even know if the Etruscans had conquered that area yet. So it's using this word day, and we know that Hebrew, literalists, do you know how many meanings Hebrew words have? And that letters actually can be words? I should link this to some very interesting videos showing about the Hebrew characters and how they progressed. They actually came from ancient Semitic, which is basically Hebrew. It's the first language, and actually first phonetic language, and it traveled everywhere. The oldest Torah that we have is actually Semitic, and what had been called Phoenician, they're starting to rethink and actually say that it was these people that we classify as Jews is inventing it. No, that doesn't prove there's a God. I don't want anybody, so you're the Jews, and so that must be. I'm not pulling the magical Quran thing. No. So it uses God. And the sun, I believe, is created on the fourth day. One thing to mention, it's very orthodox about this. Yeah, the fourth day. One thing that I should... So, I'm not going to go to sleep. I'm just going to go to work afterwards. I'm still waiting for the person to send me that, I don't know, PDF file or message or link to a web page or a video showing how the documentary hypothesis is just so ridiculous. When Julius Wellhausen basically stumbled across the bulk of it. It had been talked about for a while. Ezra was seen as the compiler of the Torah, or a recompiler of the Torah. That was from very ancient times, and it was always talked about all throughout the history of the Jews and the ancient church, and even up until extremely recently, when people wanted to stop talking about it, people in the church wanted to stop talking about all of them. It's only certain people and minority people, but Moses didn't write the Pentateuch. What most people call the Torah, when you say Torah, it can mean all of it can mean the Tanakh, it can mean the first 5 books, it can mean the 10 Commandments, it can mean the law portion. Mention about Genesis chapter 1, written by the priestly text, is that it's liturgical. God speaks things into creation. And then there's a response. God speaks and it's created. And then there's a reply, and it is good. And it gets to man and says, it says, then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Elohim is a plural word. Say, it means gods. No. Not in this context. There's actually a few times where in the Quran it's pluralized. Allah and Elohim are actually cognates. Now it's funny, you have a piece of redactor in chapter 2, verse 4, the first part of it, and the redactor, to try to bridge it, says, this is a history of the heavens and the earth. They